we're gonna actually chat about some of the picks that you made, some of the picks that I made. Mostly, we're just gonna be talking about these awesome games that just took place. We are going to start with, of course, probably the match that is most fresh in everybody's mind right now. We had Houston Dash and Portland Thorns close out the NWSL weekend for everybody. That was the game that kicked off at 7 p.m. Eastern. 4-0 for Portland Thorns in this one. No, you got it right, Lisa. I think we both went Portland in this one, but geez, what a start, what a finish, quite frankly, for this team. I think I mentioned it in the preview when we were doing this, that there's something about when these two teams get together. I've enjoyed the more recency of the competition between these two teams in terms of maybe as a kind of under the radar rivalry a bit. But one of the things that we talked about with the Houston Dash side was how they were going to look, how they were going to adjust, what was the team going to bring if they were going to be missing somebody like a Rachel Daly. And then because of how we do our previews, did not have access to the availabilities report at the time, and seeing somebody like a Nichelle Prince, also kind of a player that is huge for them in the attack. So I think right away when we saw these starting lineups, I think you and I were both maybe kind of like, well, this could be a long night for the Dash, and it looks like ended up as such. 4-0 final scoreline.
Yeah, I think that it was something we have to talk about. And even Christine Sinclair, being just moments before the game starting, ending up not being available, not getting the start originally scheduled to start, and then something happened there. But with Houston obviously not having Rachel Daly, she is away on international duty with England for the Euros. And then to see that Schmidt was going to be out as well, who is defensively in the midfield, someone that Houston really could have used against Portland, frankly, because Schmidt is a player that can break up defensive plays really well, but also have a bit of that final pass, connect well with Groom up top, and Brivas Sally and Sanchez, but then also not to have Nichelle Prince. That's also a huge loss for Houston, and happening pretty quickly, right? Like this before we knew it, all of a sudden these players were out and not available. It was incredibly hot in Houston for this match. They did hydration breaks throughout it. We saw a couple of players going down throughout this match, getting cramps, even towards the very end of this game as the ball was still being played around the field. I saw a couple Houston players drop into a downward dog, give a calf stretch because their muscles were just tight. Maybe a bit of dehydration as well being thrown in there. But this game it started very fast, incredibly quick, and in favor of Portland. Almost so surprising for Portland with opening minute of this game. Portland gets on the board. It's comes at the fate of an own goal. Katie Naughton for Houston ends up mishitting it. It kind of like slips off her shin and her shin guard and goes in the back of the net. Incredibly unfortunate. Honestly, that's like the only word I can say for it, because it's not as though Portland had put on so much pressure and they were sending crosses and crosses into the box, which is often how we see own goals happen. And there's so much pressure. It was really just a mistake, and Portland ended up on the positive side of that mistake. And that changed this game a little bit, because Portland had more momentum at that point. And then as things continued to unwind, then it was another unfortunate, if you're a Houston fan, unfortunate call, a penalty kick in the box. It was a foul, right? But like Houston fans could argue Sophia Smith got the shot off. It was called incredibly late. Like it wasn't an initial PK that was called. So maybe the center official talking to the sideline official, but before you know it, it's the 23rd minute and Portland is up 2-0 on an own goal and a Sophia Smith penalty kick, which just deflates a team like Houston that's already out with a number of players.
Yeah, it was. I think it's tough to sort of go down in that type of fashion, right? As you head into the second half, it's like you start off with an own goal, and then you have this moment, just sort of mid moment of the first half, I guess is the way to put it. Like you said, late whistle, all that stuff sort of adds to maybe not even just confusion on the pitch, but maybe aggravation around it. It's kind of like if you're gonna make the call, just part of that. And then going down, now you're not just down 1, but you're down 2 heading into the half at home on top of that, where maybe perhaps maybe there was you felt maybe moments of parts of the game might have been more even, like possession fairly even in this first half between the two sides. Total shots fairly even. 5 for Houston, 6 for the Thorns. But when you go into the half down 2, you're not only making adjustments to come out and try to get back into the game, you're maybe rethinking the game plan that you were already making adjustments to begin with, knowing that you were going to be out with somebody like a Daly or a Prince. I think it was perhaps a mountain too high to climb, maybe, if you're the Dash, kind of going into this type of match as you're going up against a Portland side that we have seen kind of hitting their stride in a certain kind of way, and in certain type of level ahead of really this international window that's going to be coming up soon, the CONCACAF W Championship that will be coming up soon, and then once you sort of look into this second half, just guess maybe sort of looking at it as wheels falling off, because it just wasn't, it just really got away. It just really got away from them. This game ending with Portland accelerating the shot total, going from just 6 in the first half and then ballooning that to 20 shots total to close out their 90 minutes here. Houston with 8, 7 on target for the Thorns versus the one. And obviously a really big game for 16-year-old midfielder Olivia Moultrie. Ended up getting a goal in this match, an assist in this match in the 82nd minute on Sophia Smith's goal. So I think maybe if you're the Portland side of things, besides seeing such a big multi-goal game like that, I think having such a young player slotting in and sort of having this duo of Smith and Moultrie, I think was really nice to see. I think you're only walking away with positives, around those two players in a game like this.
Completely. And Olivia Moultrie, you said it, 16 years old. She becomes the youngest player in NWSL history to score a goal. She did it during the year last year, but it was during the ICC tournament. So it didn't count as an NWSL regular season goal. And now she gets another one, but it wasn't just the goal from Moultrie and the assist. Really, both of them were lovely. But what we were seeing from Moultrie is how she's grown even from last year, and what she was able to do in this offseason, getting time with the national team, youth team, and how she's grown as a player. Her ability to strike the ball so cleanly and technically correct with both feet from distance with power is really, truly impressive. This game was fun to watch from a Portland perspective, especially towards the end, because everything kept going in Portland's favor. And it was a little, detrimental to watch for Houston. I felt bad, honestly. It was like one hit after the other. Expected goal wise, Houston ends this one with 0.47, Portland 2.47. So Portland did a great job of executing their shots. I mean, the own goal coming, the second goal from Sophia Smith, which was deflected off a defender. Portland really put away their chances that they had and dominated this game on the stat sheet. But there were moments where it was very even on the pitch, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and at one point it just sort of looked like once they got that goal from Olivia Moultrie, it's like, okay, that's a wrap. But then you have Sophia Smith ballooning this up to 4-0 for them. But all 3 points going towards Portland, and they are certainly on a streak of their own, sort of ending a streak for Houston Dash, as they had sort of hit some pretty good form from transitioning from May into June. So we'll see what happens in the next match for both of these two teams respectively. But that wasn't the only multi-goal game that we had this week. So we started off talking a little bit about Houston Dash and Portland Thorns. So we're going to keep it going with the multi-goal games here, because we had Washington Spirit versus North Carolina Courage. This one took place on Saturday. The Courage almost letting this one slip away, end up winning this one 3-2 against the Spirit at Segra Field. We had goals from Kurtz. We had goal from Urseg, Sanchez, Hatch. It was a brace really for Kurtz. I mean, the defender is really making things happen for the Courage. I'm chuckling a little bit because I think maybe this is a game in which perhaps you see the return of a player like Caroline, right? We talked about that in the preview. We're really looking forward to seeing this player continue her development, adjusting to play in the NWSL after going down in the Challenge Cup final with an ankle injury. Seeing somebody like Diana Ordonez, these were players that we specifically kind of were like, we're going to be keeping an eye on these players in this match for the Courage. And then it ends up being defenders having a huge role for the Courage offensively in this game, but can never count out Spirit when they have players like Sanchez, players like Hatch, like Rodman, and it got very exciting very quickly. 3-2 final scoreline, but all 3 points for
It
Courage in this one.
Yeah, well, this game was really exciting to watch. Looking at the starting lineups, just kind of backtracking a little bit, Washington had a number of rotations from their last game. Rodman and Sanchez getting the start, Harding as well, Bogalski in the back line. So it was Ashley Hatch coming off the bench in this one, but it was quick for North Carolina, right? Bianna Pinto, goal in the 6th minute. It was incredible. It was really great goal from Caroline. Honestly, it was pretty bad defending from Emily Sonnet. She gave Caroline way too much space on the shot and she tried to give her the space on her left foot, but there was so much space that Caroline could shoot with her right foot to the far post. It was almost like, where was Sonnet? Why was she giving her so much space? She looked like she was unaware of her positioning on the field at that point, not realizing how far inside the box she had gotten at that point. But it was back and forth in this game because Washington had quick chances in the first half as well. Rodman had a few chances. Elwell had a really close one, the rookie. Then at halftime, Ashley Hatch comes in, and you think that things for Washington are going to settle down a little bit. They're going to get a little bit more composure and momentum. And 50th minute on a set piece corner kick, Abby Urseg is able to make this 2-0 for North Carolina. North Carolina, how did you lose a 2-0 scoreline at this point? And the only way I can say that they lost this was because they were playing against Washington Spirit. Washington Spirit is a team that can do crazy things and create magic out of thin air. And that's exactly what happened because Ashley Sanchez had a number of chances. She was getting into the box. Yeah. The goal that she ends up scoring on is something that happens almost identically 20 minutes prior to that. And Sanchez isn't able to score on this one. Goalkeepers in this game had a pretty good game, I want to say. But Sanchez is able to do this incredible little give and go with Bailey Feist, and Sanchez gives it to Feist, who lays it right back to Sanchez, and it's right back in for the goal. We got to see the return of Kelly O'Hara for Washington Spirit. She played the last 15 minutes of this game. And then a penalty kick is drawn by Emily Sonnet inside the box. Hatch knocks it down. All of a sudden, it's 2-2 for Washington, and it's the stoppage time at the end. 3 minutes of added stoppage time on. In the 91st minute of this match, a set piece for Dabinia and Kaylee Kurtz who gets it. So 2 set pieces that North Carolina was able to score on. But really it's Washington that was able to, gave up 2 goals on set pieces. And poor Kingsbury on that set piece, she makes the initial save and her defenders aren't sticking with Kaylee Kurtz, and she gets the follow-up. Huge celebration for North Carolina. But man, this game it had a lot in it.
It got very wild in the last, 12 minutes of the match. Very, like I said, it got very wild very, very quickly. I feel for the Spirit, quite frankly. I know we had the Courage picked in this one, and it's always fun to come on here and say, yay, like we picked correctly.
I do feel bad though for Washington.
But I just, watching this team play right now, I'm just kind of like, what? It's tough. It's tough because it's like you could just sort of see this team and the heavy legs and the constant rotation that they're having to do. They're hitting points of exhaustion, right? And they're trying to get creative at this point in terms of their player rotation. It's like, hey, let's have Ashley Hatch, the reigning Golden Boot leader, come off the bench, right? And I think maybe in a regular week and in a regular month of schedule game, maybe that's not the idea or the plan. But with sort of this very match heavy, couple of months that they've had, it looks a little bit different right now. Yeah. And it was just one of these things I think that we've been watching. We're just like, well, it's working. They're not necessarily picking up a ton of wins, but they're not dropping games, getting points where they can. And then that just sort of feels like this is maybe the game that finally was just the one to say like they weren't able to sort of just hang on a little bit, because it was absolutely this sort of come from behind spearheaded effort right in the second half. And it just wasn't meant to be, I think, in this one for them. But another 3 points for the Courage. Again, a Courage team that we have been wanting to continue to see a little bit more from. Right. See some of that Challenge Cup success translate into the regular season. And going on the road and picking up a win in a place where it's tough to get a win for if you're the home side or the visiting side. We've talked about that at Segra Field, and also without their head coach in Sandra, who was a late scratch himself due to COVID protocols. So tough to go on the road and pick up the win, and even tougher, I think, when you're sort of facing a huge shift in momentum from the home side. But they came through clutch. The defenders came through clutch on the set pieces. It kind of gave me, for me, it was like a little bit of the courage of, we used to see the courage sort of be very, very successful on set pieces, and that kind of got away from them a little bit. But it was nice to see that the victory come through set pieces.
Yes, exactly. And when you were talking about Washington, and I mean, they come from behind, they end up getting 2 goals and they equalize. They're pushing for a tie towards the end of this game, right? They're trying to get a goal. The last 10 minutes was just hectic because it was tied and everything. But throughout this stretch that Washington has now lost, I'm counting backwards, lost, drew, drew. Their goal differential has been kept very minimal because they have been able to score goals, right? So this was a 3-2. It's only a 1-goal differential, a 0-0 before that, 1-0 before that, 1-1, 2-2, 0-0, 1-1. Like, they're keeping their goal differential at -2 right now. So in this stretch where they're not winning games, maybe they're splitting points, they're also not completely falling off the wagon because they're keeping that tiebreaker of goal differentials small, which will help them
towards come in clutch.
Honestly, like, if that's what this team is going to end up falling back on, like, I could see that happening. Well, we'll talk in September when we're getting down to that.
Well, we've been asked about that here on the show, and we both are in agreement that the second half of the season is going to look a little bit different in the standings versus this first half so far. But I would imagine that these two teams, again, the familiarity that they've had between each other, we talked about that in the preview, that maybe we would see that kind of play out, in this type of match. So the fact that it got very, very wild and chaotic within the final kind of 15-minute window, I think maybe wasn't too surprising. But 3-2, not the only biggest scoreline, right? We had another game that had a lot of goals in it as well. We're gonna go through this one right now. It's gonna be Racing Louisville FC versus Angel City FC. We got to talk about a number of things here. Yes, there was another game that had a 3-2 scoreline, and it was sort of, again, wild to kind of watch all of these games compressed. There were some overlapping kickoffs, and we talked about that as well. I always, whenever that happens, it's always fun kind of texting Lisa through it, because we're just like, oh my God, did you see this? Did you see this? And here's was another one of those games. Quite frankly, I do maybe a fun anecdote to start off with this one, because I know folks are probably eager to get our thoughts on some of the things that occurred within the match. But I will say that one thing that I enjoyed right off the bat in this game, and some people are going to be like, okay, is actually kind of the kit clash a little bit. I loved seeing the away jerseys of Angel City up against the home kits of Racing Louisville. I loved it. It was botanical vibes. I loved it very in their own respective ways. I loved it very much. I was like, this is just very nice to watch. Like, it's just so cool. I love NWSL. I think has some of the best kits in the world, and I love that these two were on display. But again, I think we were talking a little bit about the spirit and North Carolina, how in certain phases of the games it got maybe kind of wild kind of quickly. And when I think back to this game and we were watching it, this kind of was similar, I think, for me, and kind of echoing some of these things in this one. Racing Louisville, the home side, getting off to a good start. You have them going up a goal. We're looking at some really good stuff here on set plays, free kicks, special teams, if you want to call it, for all my American football fans who are trying to get into soccer. But something about Louisville getting into these positions where they're trying to make the most, quite frankly, of those opportunities in front of them, when there's a chance off a free kick, or where there's a chance to be able to set up or reset, and just sort of see things. And then I love that this opening goal came from a defender in Bonner, but it's also giving us an opportunity to maybe talk a little bit more about Savannah DeMello, who's we have been talking about, I know, like off mic, and now we got to bring it on mic, but has really been performing really well for Racing Louisville in their rookie year. And I think Racing Louisville made a number of picks in that first round in this draft, and we were excited and eager to see if maybe if there was going to be a moment of transition for some of these players on the racing side to sort of get adjusted. But we've seen DeMello now sort of rising up to these occasions in these various moments for Louisville, despite maybe some of the ending score lines. These are perhaps some of those silver linings that fans of the club or neutrals of the league can maybe kind of take a look at and grab on. But again, this goal coming off of a set piece situation, and DeMello and Bonner linking up for the first goal, but it was very brief. You have a very, very brief lead. We're talking just minutes later.
So Bonner scored in the 29th
Yes.
minute, and then the next goal came in the 36th minute for Angel City.
We always talk about like that, those extra minutes that come after a goal and how you kind of have to be on alert. But I would say that this was perhaps a goal in the making. I think that Angel City was doing a pretty good job in this game of trying to maybe flip the script a little bit on Racing. We have seen this Racing team try to come out here themselves this season and get on the front foot and try to take the game to the opposition immediately, maybe hit with a high press. And we saw some really good movement, at least for me, when I was watching this game from Angel City. And I just sort of felt like any second there was going to be a breakthrough for this team. But it ended up, being that the Racing Louisville got on the board first, but we've got Kristen Press equalizing just minutes later. Really, really, really good shot. I thought this was a very, very another good game from Press for Angel City. We've been talking about sort of her return this season to NWSL and sort of how she has been kind of finding a ways to thrive within Angel City and on this team, and as they have gotten off to a very, very quick start. But I just was a little curious when we're talking about waves of momentum within a game and how certain things can kind of suck the energy out of them or shift things around. We saw the second half again get off to a very, very kind of, I'll just say, a good start for Angel City, but then it quickly kind of turned into like a very kind of curious feelings, I think, for the Angel City side. We have Savannah McCaskill and Crystal Press continuing, right, this sort of duo that we've seen, the build up between the two of them. Kristen Press assisting on the goal by McCaskill, but also just a ton of space for these two players to work with on this very early goal to start the second half. It was just kind of like, okay, well, we're just going to allow the opposition to go ahead and do that, but it's perhaps a choice maybe. But again, it's just maybe one of these moments where you kind of wonder, is this going to be the moment where maybe Angel City continues to capitalize and sort of take control of the game a little bit? But unfortunately, just by the hour mark, you have a moment in the game where a star player has to come out for a team. So Angel City has a stoppage of play because we have this moment where Kristen Press is kind of like putting in some defensive work. She goes down to the box, and it's a tough moment. It has to come off of the pitch. And for me, like sort of seeing this game kind of deflate a little bit, I think if you're the Angel City side, it just was one of these moments where you're just kind of like, okay, well, this is a terrible thing that has happened for your team because, quite frankly, your star franchise player just came out of the game. But this is also a moment in which there's technically a ton of time left in this game. And then you have a Nadia Nadim, who had also subbed into the game, convert a penalty kick.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, it's like it's equalized again. It's just like, it was just such the energy in this match for me was just like so chaotic. And I wouldn't say that it was good or bad, but just leave it at that. I was just like, wow. I was like, what is happening in this game?
So I want to, Nate Santi in our chat right now, he's like, what's up with Racing? It's hard to get a good read on them. And that's because Racing Louisville has been almost inconsistent in their play this year. So it's hard to determine as a fan watching it, what are they going to do? What are they going to bring throughout a certain type of game and looking at the different opposition that they're facing. And that's why it's hard to get a read on Racing Louisville. And that's why sometimes they show up and Nadia Nadim putting in a really good shift of minutes and ultimately knocking down that penalty kick. And we've seen so much growth from Savannah DeMello doing it, really growing into that role in the midfield and taking on a little bit more life of what she can do, especially in the attacking end for Racing Louisville. And remember, this was the first game for Racing Louisville without Cece Kaiser because she was traded away to Kansas City, who we'll talk about that. She had a great game.
Well, we talked about it in the preview. We said, we were making our picks. We're like, we're not saying that it's going to come down to, one or two players, maybe, sort of mixing things up here. But when you have player movement that happens just before a game like that, changes things up for a team.
Yeah, exactly. It does change things up. And honestly, I think Savannah DeMello took that opportunity to say, I'm going to be a little bit better. I'm going to create more for my team and be more of an impact on this game for my team. When we look at Angel City, their possession has progressed so incredibly well. And we've seen games where they knock the ball around so well, but they're not scoring many goals. And for them to get 3 in this game, they didn't control the possession. So when they had the ball, it was progressing it more down the field and doing a better job at being offensively minded with their possession, not just looking to keep it, but looking to move forward and create those opportunities. Savannah McCaskill, this was a statement game for her. And she did a really nice job with that. But Sandra, you touched on it. Kristen Press going down. A lot of the air was let out of that stadium, and Angel City was not even at home. I know so many people are devastated about what happened, and we have no official word as of this point, but what do you know about Press and her injury?
Well, I mean, we saw obviously that it was to the knee. It was something that she grabbed immediately as she went down. And I think a lot of people saw on the stream and in the replay, but there's other reports that she was seen on crutches. But I think, when you have, again, when it's that caliber of player, that's always going to be a precaution like that out of a posting, no matter what is going to end up being the official diagnosis or evaluation of that injury, whether it's major or a minor diagnosis, that you're going to want to have your star player exit this night on, crutches, as little weight on the knee is possible. So unfortunately, it's just going to be one of those things that we will not know until the Angel City is obviously back and they're able to, get her evaluated at home, maybe by, team doctors, et cetera. So unfortunately, there's just going to have to be a little bit of patience until then. But absolutely a moment in which you're just kind of like, oh no. And I know folks are probably going to want to hear about the officiating or how this happened or didn't happen, or if the game got out of control, but there was that deep stoppage time in this game. It's how Angel City was also able to get back in and retake the lead and all 3 points, so it's something interesting to just sort of take note within a match like this. And I'm in agreement. I don't think there's anything unfair or wrong to I think that's an honest question to be asked by the chat about racing. I think a lot of it is the fact that they're in this is an expansion team in its second year. They hit the reset button. They got a new coach. They've got new players, some of them first-year players. And they're going to be trying to figure things out in terms of team identities and et cetera, and what they're trying to establish as their team culture, both on and off the pitch, but also their playing style, which is why I think sometimes we come on here and we talk about Racing Louisville and some of their performances. We get impressed by some of the, some of the high press that we see from them. And then we're like, well, why did they taper off? Is that an adjustment? Is that part of the plan when you're going into games, et cetera, et cetera? I think great on the Angel City side if you're looking at things and how you're just looking at the surface level of great, got the win, got all 3 points, but the things within it, you're just kind of like, oh my goodness, the game winner coming via a penalty because Simone Charlie bounced, her whole body just bounced off of the grass. I was like, I hurt watching that happen, so it's just tough. It's just tough to sort of watch it, but a game that very quickly, I think maybe kind of got away in terms of not a game that you're looking at and saying this is very aesthetically pleasing football to watch. It's very sophisticated. It just kind of got a little physical and stuff like that towards the end. And I think towards the end for me, I was like, can we please just like blow this whistle and
Yes,
just
please end the game. Seven yellow cards ultimately throughout this game, 2 penalty kicks. So
yeah, it was tough, but all 3 points for Angel City. Racing Louisville, I think obviously with the big move and then this being a loss, gonna have to continue to make their adjustments. They obviously are growing the minutes for Nadia and Nadim. I would also like to venture to just say maybe also grow some minutes for Ebony Salmon. Well, we'll see. I don't know. Just McDonald can't do it all out there, right? And you have a player like Savannah DeMello who's still adjusting to life in the pro league. So we'll see what kind of adjustments a team like that makes going into their next match.